Alrighty, I am here with, I believe,
Yeah.
seventh placer,
Seven.
Antoinette, from season 10, Trendsetters, returnee. So Antoinette, let's start off with just like, your decision to, reapply and come back into this crazy game. What did it mean to you? What did you want to accomplish, I guess? And, did you accomplish that?
Yeah, so coming back to this game, one of the main reasons that I reapplied, I very much was not happy with how my game ended the first time around that I played because not only did I not like get very far, but I was part of the reason I was targeted was for some reasons that were not like solely relating to me, and it was basically like about like who I was aligned with and things like that. So I really wanted to come back and kind of try and change sort of I can't form words this morning. But I wanted to kind of change um the course of how I played the first time, and I really didn't want to get targeted for things that were kind of like not so much out of my control, but like more so like I wanted to be if I was going to be targeted, I wanted it to be targeted for like things that I actually did instead of people I was aligned with. So I very much think coming back to this game, I knew I wanted to come back regardless, and the fact like it's been like I think this game started like almost exactly like a year after I played. So I felt like the timing actually happened to work for me as well, which was part of the reason that I did apply. Um, I think I definitely did much better than the first time, for sure. Um, and I'm proud of the way I played. Like obviously, I wish I could have gone further, but coming back into this game, my main goal was I was like I really want to just make jury this time around, because knowing how large and how much of the game is a pre-jury portion, um, I wanted to be able to get past that like that hill or that hump, so to speak. Um, and I really just wanted the opportunity to be more like have more of an effect on the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I would say you definitely accomplished that this season. Um, let's start off from the beginning. You were one of three returnees, right? Dre and Slade also returned from their previous seasons. In, the first round, you guys were, safe, and you guys were tasked with, breaking the teams up. Were you surprised that you weren't the only returnee? Were you expecting a full cast of returnees? Like, what were you expecting? And then once you found out who was there with you, what was your reaction to that?
Um, So I was not expecting a full cast of returnees, but I also wasn't expecting to be the only one. But I also did not think it was only going to be three of us. I thought there was going to be more. I don't know like a specific number, but in my head, I was like thinking about it. I was like, okay, because I, I was like, okay, they asked like if people like want to like reapply or whatever. And then also the fact that like I was like that you like put out applications and were like recruiting like for the game. So I was very much like I don't think it's gonna be all returnees. I was very surprised the first day to see only three of us there. And I was intrigued because like of the fact that like I am the most recent returnee from 2 seasons ago, and the other two returnees, Slade and Dre, love them. They came from like much earlier seasons, like season 1 and 3, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and I was just kind of curious to like get their gauge on the game and see what was going to happen because there was a small number of us. I was initially concerned that we were going to get targeted for that, but I was happy that even though there were only three of us, we all fairly did not do great. I think Slade did the best out of all of us, and he got 10th on his original season. So I was glad it wasn't like me coming back with like other people who've got like fifth or like fourth or like things like that. So I was like happy to see that. But I think it added like a little bit of like an extra dynamic to the season because I know like on the initial call, like everyone was very much surprised to see like even any returnees.
So, you guys pick teams. You end up at a vote here with, pretty simple, straightforward vote with, Michael going home. Then you find yourself on a team where the following round, Aaron is voted out. Pretty simple, straightforward. And then during this live night, I guess leading up to the live night, and then the live night, you're safe. And then round four is where I'd really like to dive deep in here with you because I think it was an interesting round for you. This is the vote with Jeremy, right? So you have, I don't know, it had formed, I believe, during these first couple rounds, the Space Chilies, right? You were in a
Yeah.
group with Sam, Sandy, and Zach, and yourself. And I remember you guys having a conversation, talking about the vote. Um, and you seemed a little apprehensive towards voting for Jeremy. So kind of walk through this round with me from your perspective, and how it played an effect on your relationships with some of the people in the Space Chilies.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what happened this round was me sort of like just relating it to my last game, last time I played. It was a weird dynamic for me because I was in a position where Jeremy was someone I was very close to. I love them so much, and we actually talked a lot of game. Like one of our first calls, we were on call for like over 3 hours. It was just like that instant kind of connection. So I knew they were someone that I really wanted to work with in this game. Um, and what happened was at that point, I believe it was the round before or at some point when I had initially found the pendant of power on the board. Um, and I was in this weird position where I was like, I wasn't if I was gonna use it, I was gonna give it to Jeremy instead of having me play it on Jeremy because I was like that would put a much bigger target on my back if I played a pendant on someone like round four. Um, but I was heavily going back and forth on if I should use it or not, or if I should give it to Jeremy rather. And it was like I was very much conflicted because especially which I didn't know this at the time, the first time I played, but one of my very close allies um, did have a pendant of power at the round that I went home, and they did not use it on me, clearly. So I was in this weird position of me being like, I I was like it's weird to be on the other side of like this type of thing, and I also like it was a hard decision for me just basically because I've never gotten any kind of power or an advantage in any game I've played ever. So I was also trying to juggle like how to use it, and I wanted to use it correctly and actually have like an impact on the game if I were to use it or whenever I did. So I felt like round four was like very early, and one of the hardest decisions I had to make was letting Jeremy go because I really didn't want them to go. And with that call with Sam, Sandy, and Zach, I was very much pushing back as much as I could without making it like seemingly obvious of how close I really was with Jeremy. I definitely talked about how I was like, oh well, Jeremy talks to like me and Sam, like, so I feel like I feel like that if one of us has a connection or even both of us have some kind of connection, we could use that later on in the game. And I'm like, I don't know why it makes sense now. Um, and like I understand like I like which was like so like God, it made so much sense to vote out Jeremy because like out of like the trio that I made apparently, like it made sense that like Jeremy was definitely or seemed to be the most strategic out of the three being Jeremy, Marcelo, Nick, and like it made so much sense, but that was also like yeah, that's why I'm aligned with them. But part of the reason that again, what happened was I didn't mean to like target the three of them. It was just me trying to be loyal to someone like Sandy, who I knew was close or at least liked Jester. Um, and with that, it was the issue of, even though it was me trying to be honest, being like, hey, like Nick was kind of leading this conversation, it was Sandy being like, oh, they're a trio and Jeremy's the biggest threat out of the three of them. So I very much, that was part of I think the very beginning, the first part of when my game started to shift, um, because I pushed back a lot. I went to, I wouldn't say every person in that vote, but I would say probably almost everyone in that vote, the round that Jeremy went home. And I was trying to see where people's heads were at, see what they were thinking, kind of put ideas in people's brains of, hey, like, what if we went this way instead, like type thing. Um, and it was very much like I tried so hard um, to save Jeremy, even though like in actuality I honestly didn't even have to do anything if I didn't want to because I had that pendant of power. Um, but I tried to put in that work, and the reason my game sort of started shifting at this point was because yeah, I was still like aligned with Sam, Sandy, Zach at this point, but like this, I believe this is the portion or the start of the game when they started having hesitations about me, which like valid. Um, but I just felt like I was not being heard, and I just like in my normal life, it's very much, it's something that's hard for me, and I always try to like put it aside in these games because I know like I know how to like stand up for myself and like actually like be confident in these games, which is something that is drastically different than my everyday life. And the fact that I was still actually able to voice my opinion and my hesitation for voting out Jeremy at this time, and the fact that I still was not being heard, it very much it really like it rubbed me the wrong way. And like even then, like I still talked about it, like I think with all three of them, Sandy, Sam, and Zach, like afterward, and it's still like it didn't get better. And that's why I started sort of tried to turn on them before they turned on me, which like I think it all just kind of happened simultaneously. um but the reasoning behind me, not, I didn't want to like directly go against them in a way. I just like wanted to be part of the reason that their names were out there before mine was. And it very much it very much parallels this round just in general, very much parallels between the first time I played, because I was in the first time I played, I was in, I believe, a 5-person alliance, the round that Melissa went home. And I was very much voicing my opinion and my hesitation of why we shouldn't get Melissa out. And it felt very, very similar to this game. And the fact that that game, when I reluctantly voted Melissa out, um, after I told everyone, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this early in this game. When I immediately went home after, that's sort of why I tried to change my outlook in this game specifically of what I was doing, because I wanted to get ahead of the game.
I have a question about, it seems like you are throughout your game this season, you really like reflected and thought about, season 8 and mistakes that you made in season 8 or things that went wrong. And then do you think that those experiences in season 8 really, I guess, molded the way that you played this season? And do you think that helped or hurt you, I guess?
Absolutely, it definitely did kind of affect how I played this game. All of my past game, every time I go into a new game, I always look at everything I've done in past games, and I always try to improve upon it. And because regardless of if I win or not, because I've never won a game, period. But regardless if I win or not, I still want to be able to be proud of the game that I've played. So I very much and look at my past games, and specifically looking at this game, because I've never returned to a game ever. This is the first time I've done that. So it was also a very interesting dynamic for me there of trying to look at, like, okay, like, this game, the first time I played this game was my worst placement ever. So I was very much like, okay, what do I need to fix going in this time around? I think in some aspects it did help me um, with how I make connections with people and how I talked to people. And again, like, trying to be confident in voicing my opinions and trying to have a say in how votes go and things like that. And I think it also did very much hurt me because a large part of me did not want to repeat the past. And I think I wouldn't say it exactly happens like that, like season 8, but I think a large portion of it did sort of repeat itself, because instead of I was very much targeted early on in this game, and the fact was that I was still able to have those relationships to stay, whereas in season 8 I didn't have that. But the fact was my name was out there for a really long time in this game. And although my name was out there, I was still able to stay in a lot longer. And I feel like that's where I improved. But I think ultimately, part of the reason I did go home in 7th was like a lot of me second guessing a lot of stuff from like the first time I played, and again, still trying to improve that and trying to be proud of the game I played, which I absolutely am with this game, thankfully, because the first time I played, I was not.
Well, I'm glad that you're proud of the game that you played this season. You very much should be. But let's continue. You're able to, after this Jeremy vote, you're able to clutch a trendsetter win with Jeff. You pick a team where ultimately Nick gets eliminated. I believe that was your team that lost. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
You vote out Nick. Seems to be a pretty, 5-2 to 1 vote. Seems pretty, cut and dry. And this leads us into our live night where we have, the food chain challenge, the 5 people safe. And then we have this, kind of clusterfuck vote here with a 6-5 to 1 vote. Your vote's on Delaney here. So I know that you've spoke about this in confessionals before, but talk about, you putting your vote on Delaney and then the aftermath of you explaining your vote to Delaney or explaining your vote of Delaney.
Yeah. So me voting Delaney was, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to be the only person voting for Delaney. At that point in time, I thought there were going to be like a mixture of votes between Jeff Jesser and Delaney, and it's not how I intended it. But I also, like, part of me really wanted to cause a little bit of chaos, which I think it did, and then ultimately turned on me, which is not what I intended. But also, I still tried to use that to my advantage, because the fact was, I during that live night, it was very clear that at this point in time, the jury vote had already happened. I already felt like I wasn't being heard in this alliance with Sam, Sandy, and Zach. And the fact was, I felt like, which I found out afterward, they were doing with, I found out later in the game that they were doing with a lot of people, was they were trying to manhandle votes and trying to make everyone vote the way that they wanted. And I very much, I didn't like that. And I wanted my voice to be heard, and I didn't want to be pushed over again, especially after the Jeremy vote. I was like, it makes zero sense for me to vote Jeff because after Jeremy went home, I became a lot closer with Marcelo and Jeff, who were very closely aligned with Jeremy. And it made zero sense for me to vote Jeff. So I was like, there's no way I'm voting Jeff. In hindsight, yes, I should have just said I'm voting Delaney. But I knew that's not the way they wanted to go, and that's not what I did. So I did. Part of it was panic. Part of it was me not wanting to be honest with them. But trying to maneuver after that vote. Really, I think that live night is really what opened up the game, where a lot more things were exposed, with the fact that Sam, Sandy, and Zach specifically definitely felt a lot more comfortable than they actually were, because obviously they wouldn't have tried to make a move on Jeff if they didn't think they had the votes, which technically they would have had the votes with all of the alliances that they were in. However, um, there were just enough people that were like, why are we voting out Jeff, to the point that Jeff didn't go home. And I think with that, because I think they were definitely more mad at me. I believe at that point they were also mad at Slade and Seamus as well, being in alliance with both of them. But with me specifically, I feel like it was different, where they were mad at me because I think they were already like had hesitations about me, and they were already like concerned, and then I think that put it over the edge, because I think that's when I started to really start getting targeted in this game. Um, After which for me, I've been told after my first game, my ride or die had said something to me that kind of stuck with me, like every time I play a game, and it's basically just something along the lines of like, don't vote for people, or don't make moves that don't make sense for your game. And voting for Jeff didn't make sense for my game. Voting Jester didn't make sense for my game. Because at that point I was trying to build that relationship with Jester, and because I was like, okay, fine, like, yeah, like I'm already like a little annoyed at Sam, Sandy, Zach, but the fact is Jester really likes them, and I know Jester kind of likes me, so to speak. So I was like, I'd rather keep that relationship. So what made sense to me was Delaney's name was out there. I thought she was getting more votes, and I don't talk any game. I talk zero game with Delaney. Delaney's the only person on this cast that I haven't been on a one-on-one call with this entire game. So I was like, makes sense. Like, that's it. And that's where I'm going. I shouldn't have lied about it. But I feel like with lying about it came a lot of damage control, and it came a lot of tests on the skill of my game, and really a position I feel like I've never been in any game that I've played before. So it was very interesting to try and navigate for myself. And I feel like I did to an extent, but ultimately still caught up with me, because I think ultimately of Sandy, because Sandy's always the loudest person, and always being the person with, or trying to have the most influence. So I think ultimately, like, when my name was out there and continuously out there, I don't think there was really anything I could have done to actually fully get it off of me the entire time.
Right. You know, shit happens. So we find, Jester goes home here, and then we're doing the duos competition. Sandy and Dre, are the winners of that. And at this point, I think it's pretty evident that you two are, gunning for one another. There's the main
Period.
chat. There's the main chat blow up there. There's, Sandy exploding on whoever at the team picking portion.
Everyone.
Everyone, right? So the teams are split up, and Jeff goes home in the first vote, and then the second vote, you receive votes. So my question to you is, obviously Dre goes home, but
Yeah.
how cold-blooded was it for you to just hold on to that pendant of power and say, "Hey, I'll take the two votes and I'll keep the pendant."
Yeah. So I've mentioned this before with other people like in the game, but a large part of my gameplay is I very much lean into um my paranoia and like my anxiety in my everyday life. And normally I'm very good at hiding it, but sometimes I let it show a lot more on purpose, because it'll show me who's actually working with me and who's not. And I feel like this, after like my name was out there, it very much, I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. And that round specifically, um, I think was again more of like a, I think it was more of a win for me, just because I was very much going back and forth that entire round, trying to decide. I was like, are these people fucking lying to me, or should I be playing this thing right now? Because at that point I had to rely on people that I never really had to rely on before. People being, I believe, Seamus and Slade, and Jackson, which like I had a, so I feel like, well, also Marcelo, but I already had a good relationship with Marcelo. But with Jackson, like I felt like I had a good relationship with Jackson, but I feel like that relationship was never tested. So I was very hesitant on a lot of the people that needed to basically save me. And I was very much going back and forth, and I was like, tell me if I'm going home here. Like, just tell me something. And ultimately, I think I said something along the lines of my prod chat of either this is the best move or the worst fucking dumbest move ever, of me not playing this defensive power. Because I ultimately, like, in that moment I was like no, I was like, something in my brain was like, they wouldn't continuously lie to me that much when they know how stressed out I am, and the fact that I believe at that time, people didn't realize at first how close me and Marcelo were, at that point in the game. So every time someone would I would get Marcelo to talk to other people for me and see if they're like on the same page. So every if somebody was having hesitations, like Marcelo would tell me, and nobody, at least at that point in the round, nobody was. So it was very much, I was like, okay, I was like, because it was also in a way similar to the round that I went home season 8, because the when I got voted out on a I was voted on a 4-2-2 vote. I was on a call that round, like before the elimination. I was on a call with like an alliance that was supposed to be a voting block for this vote, and these people just lied to my face, like minutes before this vote happened, and then voted me out. So I was trying to compare it again to season 8, because when I was on that call with Marcelo, Seamus, and Slade, when we called before the elimination, it was very much like, I was like, do I put my trust in these people? Because I'm like, I did this the first time and it didn't end up well. And with that, I think part of what I realized was, again, it was like there were people that would have been people like Marcelo, like, who would have been lied to me, and it would have made no sense for them. And I think with like that call, I sort of like realized, and I came to the realization of, people wanted Sandy God more than me, and valid. Uh, but they like I was like, there's no way they would vote me, someone who is clearly not working with Sandy, over Jirai, who is someone who is very clearly working with Sandy. So I very much had to go back and forth of like, is their hatred for Sandy more than like more than their, I guess, hatred for me, which I feel like there were only a few people, I think, at this point that could say they actually hated me, which I feel like hate is a strong word, but like with what I did, like, fair. But yeah.
Wanted you out.
Yeah.
Not hated, not hated. Um, okay, so you were able to, hold back the pendant play. You are able to clutch another team win here with, Seamus and Delaney during the escape room. I didn't watch that, but congratulations, you guys killed it. And then we find ourselves in the jury phase, and we find ourselves at this vote that, at one point no one got votes because of pendant plays. So let's break this down real quick. We have first of all, we have, I believe it was 6 people. Yeah, 6 people attending this elimination. And then we have, first you see Sandy play a pendant. So at that point, is that like, all right, I have to play mine now or I'm done?
Oh, 100%. I knew I was the only other person getting votes. Like I was like, if I don't play this, I was like, no, because obviously I didn't want to play it that early in the game. And but the fact was I was like, Sandy's not voting for anybody else, and neither is Zach. So here we go. I'm going home regardless. So the minute he played it, which very much assumed that he had something, just the way the teams were set up, which I think we talked about this in jury actually a little bit. But the way the teams were set up, it was very much like, I was like, why would Zach put Sandy on a try or a team or a clique that like
No worries. I mess that up all the time.
like, no, I'm trying to be accurate. I'm like, why would Zach put Sandy on a clique where it seems like he's very much gonna get targeted? I'm like, there's no way that he doesn't have something here. And the minute he like obviously my suspicions were true because he played something, and then I was immediately like, yeah, hi. Here I was like,
Hold up, bro.
yeah, I'm like, I literally cut Pop off, and in hindsight, I was like, that was so bad of me. But I was like, no, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't. Oh, but I think it was so iconic, specifically at that point in the game, for me and Sandy, who had been after each other for a while now. Um, I just feel like that moment was so perfect because we both voted for each other, and literally canceled all of the votes in that initial vote. And I think that was a very, very fun time, at least for me, because I was safe.
So let's talk about with this vote, you were gifted, you had the swing dance, which was the ability to join a vote. You sent that to Marcelo and he played it during this vote. Was that basically because that was the last time he could play it, or was that because you just wanted a lot of votes on Sandy?
A little bit of both. Because it was for sure, like, well, not for sure, but very, very high suspicion of this was the last round that all of the powers that were specifically for the quick phase of the game, I feel like it was like the last round they could have been played. So part of me wanted to save it, and I wanted to use it I wanted to use it at an elimination where it would actually have an effect. And I also, I think, wanted that extra security of Sandy going home, which is like, regardless, obviously it didn't matter. Um, but I also I didn't want to have this power and not play it. I wanted to be able to play it for a reason. And it would have been so good. But I knew, like, I literally within those 10 minutes before that round, um it was very, I was literally like, I literally went my front and I was like, can I send this to Marcelo right now? I was like, because I'm clearly not safe and I clearly can't use it for myself. And at that point, like, I never trust anyone 100%, but at that point I was like, I trust Marcelo. And Marcelo is the person I trust the most in this game right now. So I was like, I wanted to make sure I was giving it to someone who would use it with me. And the fact that, like, that was played, and then also Seamus's power, which I knew about already, but he told me about within those 10 minutes that he had a double vote. Um, Also chaotic and crazy, but specifically with my power, I think it was a mixture of wanting that security of having enough votes on Sandy, and the fact that I wanted it to get played in a way that actually, like, had an effect.
So, no votes at this first vote because everything's canceled out with the pendants, plural. So we're at a revote here, and the only two options at this point given to you guys are Slade and Seamus. You put your vote onto Slade. So talk about the decision, Slade over Seamus at this point.
Yeah, it was a little bit of influence from Marcelo, definitely. But at this point, clearly I didn't want to vote for either of them, and that was worst case scenario, I didn't think both of us playing power stuff, so that was good. But literally, at that moment I felt a lot more comfortable with Seamus, and I had since the Dre vote, I had my hesitations with Slade, and the fact that like I felt like we had a good like solid relationship, but I wasn't sure where we fully stood, and I was very much right because I know Slade was well connected, and in any other scenario, Slade would have gone much further in this game, and I felt a lot more like Seamus was in my corner, and the fact that he was a lot more honest with me about things than I felt Slade was, and I really just had to make that decision, and also um, I definitely was just like I was like, this is what I have to do. I was like, there's nothing else.
Nothing else, and Slade ultimately goes home 3-2 there. And it seems like your decision to keep Sheamus does pay off for you in the very next round. He ends up winning Trendsetter, and he co-Trendsetter safeties you. So what was that like? What was there a conversation had there between you and Sheamus? Like, hey, keep me safe, or I might be gone. Like, what was
Yeah.
that like?
So it was actually a conversation between me, Seamus, Marcello directly after Slade went home. Um, and it was, I don't remember if it was directly after. We definitely talked after Slade went home, but I think we didn't have that conversation until after Seamus won. But he was basically, he literally went on a call with me and Marcel, and we were basically like, hey, well, he's like, I'm going to save one of you, and we need to talk about like which would be a better option. Um, and he was like, I like 100% I would have been going home if I was not safe that round. Um, and which is why like I say so much that like I shouldn't have made it as far as I did in this game, because of just powers and safety and things like that. Like because of how long I was being targeted, I should have gone home a lot sooner. And this definitely would have been the round that I went home if I were not safe. So I very much appreciated it, and I was literally like, I was like Marcelo. I was like, I'm like, I don't want to be selfish here, but I'm like, I'm gonna get votes before you get votes. Like as long as I'm in this game, like I'm gonna get targeted before you. And the fact was, Sandy was still in the game, so there was still another big target that I felt again more people didn't like over me or wanted to get out before me. So I think in that scenario, it was also the fact that Sheamus had brought up that like at this point I had known that Delaney wanted me gone for a long time. I didn't care. I was like, okay, cool, another person, yay. But it was pretty much like Sheamus brought up the point of to me, Marcelo, he was like, if I don't save Antoinette, it's basically like Delaney's more inclined to vote for me, and we need her vote to get Sandy gone. Because with her vote, it still would have tied, which is why we had the steal vote that round, which chef's kiss, because he finally went home. I went home right after, but like regardless.
Um, right. So Sandy goes home 5-3. And so, like you said, you go home right after Sandy 5-2. So, Zach wins the trendsetter. He co-trendsetter safeties Sam, which at that point it's final seven. So there's only, 5 other options there. You end up voting for Taisha. So talk about, you got somebody to vote alongside with you there. Can't confirm that, but talk about, was there a fighting shot for you? Did you think that you could pull off, maybe one more round and get Taisha out here?
No, absolutely not. I feel like with who was left in the game, the only person I could I felt like I could vote for was Taisha because she was close with Sam and Zach. Regardless, I knew there was nothing I could do to stay in the game. Like I knew, like I was like, oh, Sandy's gone. I'm the next biggest target, which I knew I was gonna have to navigate regardless if Sandy went before me. It was just the fact that I didn't even get time to be able to do that because of the live night. Which even if I did have time, I don't even think it would have helped. I still think I would have gone home next if I wasn't safe. Um, but I know you said you can't confirm, but I'm almost positive it was Marcelo, because he literally told me. But I literally I was like, there's nothing I could do. I was like, I know they're all gonna vote for me. I think for me it was just the fact that people weren't honest with me about it, even though like I 100% already knew they were writing my name down. Like it was like it is what it is. But yeah, I feel like that last round because it was like so quick. It was so like it was so annoying. But I was just like I was like part of me was like relieved because I'm like great, I don't have to deal with the stress anymore. But like obviously I always like I definitely wanted to go further, but I felt like that like at that point, it was like the first round in a while where I didn't have some kind of safety or backup plan or safety net or whatever you want to call it. Where it was like it made sense, and I was like, I know, especially with only like 10 minutes to vote, there's literally nothing I can do.
So your game ends there. Your game ends with a 5-2 vote. You're eliminated. You're a part of the jury now. You come to a jury of Slade and Sandy, and now there's jurors coming in, every night basically because the game has ramped up apparently very quickly. So you're aware now of this, final two. You guys had your jury roundtable, I believe, last night.
Last night, yeah.
So what are your thoughts right now? Was there anything from the jury roundtable that maybe made you think differently, or are you kind of set on, going into this finale with, with a certain, like, I don't know, preconceived notion, or you're leaning a certain way?
Honestly, right now my vote is definitely still open. Just because, like, I definitely did take a lot into consideration with the jury roundtable, obviously, because everyone has their own experiences with each individual player in this game, and because of the fact that my vote is open right now, I definitely did take a lot of what was said at the jury roundtable, like, into consideration. Where I think a large part of me, it's very much going to depend on what Sam and Zach say, just because there's specific things that I need to know and there's specific answers that I need to ultimately make my decision. Because I think at this point in time, both of them need to convince me why I should vote for them. Because I don't see a clear cut winner, and I think there's both pros and cons to both of their games. And I'm very much like I'm very excited, and also like I'm very interested and intrigued to see what they have to say and if they actually defend themselves and say like what I want to hear, basically.
What do you want to hear?
Um, there's a lot of specific scenarios, specifically with my game in relation to both of theirs, that I want um like figured out. And a lot of it was like the lack of communication and things like that. Even like after like Sandy was clearly targeting me and they clearly picked sides, um, which was obvious because again, like the three of them were like they voted together, and they were very much closer to each other than I ever would have been. Um, and I think just the portion of the game, like after I started getting targeted by Sandy, I felt like all of any kind of relationship I had with either of them very much went downhill. And I think with specific instances, like after specific votes and things they said to me are like things I need answers on. And I've been trying to articulate how I want to ask specific questions because I'm not sure. I don't know if you can tell me, but I'm not sure how much time each of us has. Is it 10 minutes?
Typically, I believe it was 7 minutes, but it might
Okay.
be 10 minutes, so I'm not.
Okay, just
I'm
because I just because I know that they both have 7 minutes for their opening statement, but I'm not sure how long we have. But I do like I am very much going to be thinking today about like how I want to form questions, what I want to ask, because there's specific things that I feel like I need answers to that are actually going to influence my vote. And I feel like this is the first time. Um, this is only the second time I've actually been on a jury because most of the games I've played I've actually made to the end, which like isn't to brag. It's just to say that I haven't been on a jury in a while. And the first time I was on a jury, it very much was like there was a very clear winner in my eyes. Whereas this one, I think, is an interesting dynamic because I don't see like someone like I don't know if that's true or not. Because like my vote is still open, I'm definitely leaning one way. But if the other person can convince me and speak very well on their game and reasons why they did things, then I'm inclined to vote that way. But it honestly depends on what each of them say. So I'm very excited to actually have the opportunity to have an influence on this vote and how this game ends.
Absolutely, and I hope you get all the answers that you are looking for from the finalists. Um, Say your schedule lines up perfectly and Ascendance comes to you and says, "Hey, Antoinette, we're having another season. It's, maybe all returnees, maybe something along the lines of All Stars 2." Is that something that you would want to, participate in again, or are you kind of like, "Hey, I made it to jury, like I'm done."
No, absolutely, I would. As chaotic and crazy as this game is, I think the format is so unique, and I think it makes that much more of interesting gameplay and strategy that goes into it. And I would absolutely 100% play this game again. Also because like now playing the game twice, I feel like I definitely like I very clearly like improved on the first time I played, but there's still like a lot of things that I can do better, and it's still the issue of trying to master this game, which I feel like is very hard to do because of such the interesting I keep saying interesting dynamic, which I keep trying not to say, but just the interesting format of this game I think is what makes it so um just so different and so fun to play. Like stressful in the moment, but overall so fun to play. So I would absolutely play again if I were to get that chance, which I know may or may not happen for a long time. But absolutely.
Very few have mastered the art of Ascendance,
Yeah.
and many have tried, but Um, so, Antoinette, those are all the questions that I have for you in this portion of the exit interview. If there's anything that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about, we can do it now, or I can stop this recording for you.
I don't think so. I'm very excited to see how this game ends, and I'm kind of excited for it to be over, because I feel like it's been so long, and especially for me, I feel like a lot of the drama of the game fell on me personally. So I'm more excited to like just kind of like and just like move on because I'm like great. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm excited for finale, and I'm excited to see how this game ends.